Let's have a bit of fun and a lot of common sense from my two guests. I know you love them. Host of Outsiders on Sky News, the wonderful Rowan Dean. Also from Sydney to now, political commentator Prue MacSween. Prue, I'm going to start with you. We're going to go straight into Anthony Albanese, death watch I call it. I think he's on the way out. Chris Bowen, though, he's grabbing this opportunity to remake himself. He's failed on borders. He's been terrible to older Australians when he was the Shadow Treasurer, but now he's Mr Climate Change. He's out there every way, and he thinks he can turn it around, but the policy's what stinks, isn't it? Not just the salesman.
Well, you know, tell him he's dreaming. He can start running around like Bill Shorten did in his little shorts, trying to look fit and ready for the role. But he's clueless. He hasn't got... he's got a tin ear when it comes to understanding what the people want. They've got on this climate bandwagon, but they're kamikaze about it because, you know, they don't know if they're Arthur or Martha about whether they want to create jobs or not. We all know that if they pursue this ridiculous emissions target and have this anti-fossil fuel campaign, the workers will be out of jobs. It's as simple as that. We will not be able to boost the economy with manufacturing and all the other things that we need. For example, just keeping their damn lights on would be nice. So, I mean, their policies are ridiculous. They haven't even enunciated them, so we don't even know really what they want apart from, you know, bleating on about climate. So I just think the guy's kidding himself, and I think Tanya is the wrong choice as well. She is too left and, you know, appealing to the inner city elite. They just haven't got a clue about what middle Australia, the quiet Australians, want out of a government.
Well, the bloke who knows that and more is Joel Fitzgibbon, Rowan. I watched him on your show last night. Terrific effort filling in for Alan over the summer. He couldn't have been franker, and he's on the backbench. You know, he left the front bench of the Labor Party, but it shows his level of influence. That back before Christmas, he said Butler must go or we're just not credible. Well, Butler's now gone. The bad policies are still there. Most of them have not been costed. That's the biggest deficiency in my book. But, you know, other sensible players from the right, like Claire O'Neill, she's been demoted down to nowhere. This looks more and more, and, you know, I did 8 years in opposition, so I know what it looks like when they're starting to have an internal war. That's what it looks like to me. This doesn't look like a comeback plan.
No, not at all, Peter. And, you know, this isn't a reshuffle, it's a re-scramble. Anthony Albanese is scrambling around trying to, you know, the obvious imagery is the Titanic and the deck chairs and all that entails. His leadership is not going anywhere. He might kid himself that he's Joe Biden, but he's going to need an awful lot of Democrat dodgy, fraudulent votes if he's ever going to make it in the same way that Biden did, in my humble opinion. So Albanese is kidding himself. The only person who can lead that party to any hope of victory is Joel Fitzgibbon, because he's in touch with the fact that Labor used to be a party of the working classes, and the working classes like jobs, and jobs demand energy, and energy demands coal. Joel Fitzgibbon understands that, the rest of them don't. Chris Bowen, this is a double failure. It's a failure for Mark Butler's climate change policies, so he's gone. He's had yonks to get the climate change policies right, had they been rejected at every election. But it's also a failure of Chris Bowen's, because he was the Shadow Health Minister during a pandemic. You'd think that'd be pretty easy to land a few blows. You know, unknown waters, uncharted waters. We've had border closures. We've had hotel quarantine mishaps, all sorts of stuff. And what has Chris Bowen, as Shadow Health Minister, been banging on about? Craig Kelly and hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Ivermectin being a drug invented, or a treatment invented here in Australia by Thomas Borody, which is having great success all around the world. If you were the opposition Shadow Health Minister, you'd be looking at that and saying, that's a great idea. Why isn't the government looking at that? Instead, he's played all this silly sort of accusing Indian doctors of being quacks and accusing Kelly of being a conspiracy theorist. He's missed the big game. So he's been punted because he led Albo right up the garden path on this. Albo's hasn't landed a single glove on the entire pandemic. What a joke.
Prue, you've been in the media industry for a long time. We've seen more of our state premiers than we ever have, I think, in recent times, certainly last year, and Daniel Andrews fronting press conferences, taking questions, not answering them. But Andrews, won't front Neil Mitchell, Talkback Radio in Melbourne. We saw a tweet out yesterday, I think it was, Justin Stevens, executive producer of the 7:30 report on the ABC. Well, he's really hitting back at Palaszczuk for not turning up and fronting the ABC. Now, for a Labor Premier not to front the ABC, things are really crook.
Yes.
His tweet there says, get beyond just putting out a tweet, Premier, get out there beyond your iPhone, front and answer some questions. We have a right, don't we, considering the power that we now see that states have over our lives, that they've always had, but I think a lot of people didn't realise it, and how much they're in debt and how much political games are being played. Surely they should front the media and respond to questions. How do they get away with it?
Well, there's maybe the media's turning. If the ABC is turning on a lefty premier, that's telling us something. I mean, she is Palaszczuk-shameless, and frankly, she really has a problem with explaining herself. She has tried all sorts of things during this COVID episode. The theatrics have been amazing. She's been the star of her own COVID video, and I just think that she hasn't got any answers. She played this whole Mother Teresa thing. She got the votes from the scared, witless oldies and, people who really were concerned that, this thing was going to kill them all. Instead, she killed an industry and her whole state economically. She cannot explain this. She's now trying to offload it onto and blame shift the blame onto Frydenberg and Morrison. That they should be bailing them out, that they need special treatment, when really she has done it all. She has visited this on her state. They were already a basket case before COVID, and she's just made it worse. So I, for one, as a taxpayer, do not want to bail her out. I feel terribly sorry for the tourism industry up there, as I do for the whole Australian tourism industry with all these border closures, and perhaps some of them do need an extension of some sort of support. But for goodness sake, I don't want any support to go to Palaszczuk to get her out of this mess she has created.
No, if they want to be sovereign premiers in sovereign states, the Prime Minister's got to get a bit of a backbone and let them wear some of their decisions. I agree with you on that. Just before we go, Rowan, New South Wales power prices up by almost 40% in the last quarter after record low coal generation and an outage at Liddell. Liddell, we know, shuts in 2023. There's no real answers out there. I listened again on your show last night to Angus Taylor. A lot of hot air, I have to say, from a lot of politicians. This is going to be the new normal.
Well, Peter, the reality is, the lived reality of everybody around the world is that renewables drives up the cost of energy. Now, we hear all this sort of stuff from all the lovies who tell us, on all sides of politics, the renewables fantasists, that, no, it's cheaper than coal. It never is. And the consumer knows it never is, because the consumer pays all the time. And this is just another example of more renewables. Okay.
No, you're right. You can finish your sentence, Rowan. I agree with you, 100%. We've heard it, and the lies keep coming. Anyway, got to go. Prue MacSween, Rowan Dean, great to have you back. 2021 with the Dream Team on a Friday.